Wurfel Luxuriate Hour.
Good evening and welcome to the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour, brought to you by Wurfel Living and Bangalore. Log on to www.wurfel.in for all the details. This show, Drive Bangalore, is brought to you by Yalahanka. It's all happening here again. Well, I have a super special guest sitting right across me tonight on the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour, and also the Wurfel team. Guys, a woohoo from you! This is Mr. Ravindra Kumar, extremely well-travelled, has won prestigious awards like the Leeds Platinum Award, the Architect Triple ID Awards. On the show tonight, since this is called Wurfel Luxuriate Hour, every architect who's come on board has given us a different definition of luxury. And for you, since you're so well-travelled and so well ensconced in what you do, what does luxury mean to you?
Yeah, having travelled more than 165 plus countries, I think one thing that I learned, or from that experience of seeing the vernacular or seeing the urbanity, or looking at many sort of hospitality spaces or office spaces, which is sheer joy of luxury. I think in all that grandeur, what you accurately see is the quality of detail. I mean, I'm so impressed when Carlos Capa in his memoir wrote that he is the only person who is accurate enough to design his own tombstone. I think it's that sense of accuracy and connect to do detail in the space of joy brings that element of luxury. You can be in Olduvai where man originated as a Homo sapien, or it could be in the streets of New York. So you can create the joy of luxury out of nothing or out of everything that can mean by the sense of histories.
According to you, what is one of the most luxurious things that you have created thus far?
I think for me there are many things. One of the first houses that I did, which was a stone house, which was like a guest space that I built for a school where there are 350 children where they give education, and incidentally I'm the president of that organization today. So when I built that little house, which is just 800 square feet, which is enough for holding 2 people or 8 people or 10 people, I think that connect for me to make it out of almost everything that was available in its proximity, to make it primordial, was very luxurious. As in parallel, when I look at the building that I did for Lupin Laboratories, which was a 350 crore project which I built in Pune, the outskirts, and it's a laboratory and also the corporate office function for the office space. For us, the connect was that in any space you sit down, that you would capture a huge green momentum of the outdoor landscape. So you would literally feel like you're in a boat floating in a garden. So that was the idea that I started with, and we fairly were successful in making the best laboratory kind of a building practice in Asia. So therefore, that success story was complete with a whole bandwagon of consultants who were super precise, super able, and we sang the song of luxury.
Experiencing ecstasy of a different kind on the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour on 94.3 Radio 1. Well, check out the Wurfel Living Studio in Bhubaneshwar or wurfel.in. In conversation with me on this hour today is the extremely extravagant but simple at the same time Mr. Ravindra Kumar, Principal Architect and one of the founders for the research architecture studio called PRAGRUP. Mr. Ravi, tell us, for everybody setting out to make their first home, which is a unique experience of a lifetime in itself, or their second home, which is really exclusive to them, their life, their personality. From your experience, what would be like a hand guide or a handbook for them to actually listen to today and then, figure out how they go about doing this?
I think what is very significantly important is to experience the quality of light, what it means for the person to reciprocate with light. When I did many years ago Mahesh Dattani's house, I asked him to write a poem or a prose which would define his sense of being on the grass, his sense of looking at the sky, his sense of wanting to look at light, or his sense of wanting to wander in that space, which is very sacred. So these are the most important things. The rest of it is pragmatic. I mean, you can always ask for a definition of how many rooms you want and what should be the size of the room. All these are immaterial. They are very important. It's just the fabric of the nature that you want is content. So therefore, those connections is what you make buildings out of. You bring that special space to that person only in that perception, because you have to ask the person whether he's a day person or a night person. What is his existentialism in that space that he would want to reverberate and enjoy. So those are the reasons of how we make the anecdote and make that little handbook and then get to design.
In your experience, what's been one of the most exclusive homes that you've curated with respect to the soul of the person, thereby then being extended? You did give us one example, but maybe another.
Oh, it's every home. I mean, a simple house that we built, which is hardly 15 squares, which we built for Archana. I think it's fantastic. That whole experience of building with her was fabulous. Or this 30,000 square feet house that I'm doing for Rakshit Shetty, the actor. He's so articulate, accurate. He's so eloquent in every definition that he wants. He's so accurate on the connection of color and perception. So making conversations with him, I learn a lot. Or even for that matter, the house that we did for Rana Dugubati and his father, or his uncle Venki. Every meeting used to be so stretched as a huge dinner time, and there were nuances of stories that were woven together, and his experiences of how he lived his life, and all bits of that would sort of culminate and emerge as making of the house. So it doesn't have to be a question to an answer, but it is to live with them, to touch their soul, and to sort of crawl beneath their bosom that makes you feel the necessity to answer a question as to what to build as a house.
Fantastic. Well, you definitely have crawled underneath my skin. And Mr. Ravindra Kumar, an absolutely intellectual architect, joining me on the show today. I'm super excited about having you on the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour. It's absolutely an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to have you on my show. The last bit on the show is 2 questions. The first question is, amidst all your travels, tell us how much of that has really caressed your personality and made you who you are?
I think it's these intrinsic experiences that you gather as you travel. We are all nomads in some sense. We don't recognize it. Some people tend to acknowledge and live that life. So for me, I think that's been the journey, is to gather things. Just you pick up the leaves and then you really don't put that into a definition box, but it's all there in you somewhere in some epistemology, and then you bring that into perception in the sketches that I draw. So that's exactly how I think the reciprocation is. And sometimes it does happen. You would have had a little drink with a lady somewhere in a cafe in Cuba, and then when you're suddenly working on a project, you suddenly remember some conversations that would have happened with that. So it's like eureka. So something happens to you. So it's very difficult to define these moments, but as Prasik said, that it is the journey of conversation and experience that brings you the expression of wanting to live better. That's what he wrote in Zen and Leela. So I think that is very important.
Fantastic. This is the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour right here on 94.3 Radio 1. Well, it's brought to you by Wurfel Living at Banaswadi. For all the details, go check out wurfel.in. Mr. Ravindra Kumar, an absolutely intellectual architect, joining me on the show today. My final question on the show tonight is, as an architect who's been in this industry for so many years, and you've had such a super illustrious career, what is your opinion on a brand like Wurfel that wants to revolutionize Indian homes by providing homeowners with European home interiors and kitchens? Pretty much a meeting of the East and the West. What's your thoughts on that?
I think one of the most fascinating aspects about this company is of that Indian origin and is able to make a global impact. Today our lifestyles are so woven into the fabric of globalized nature of experience, and not for the reason that we can travel the world, or not for the reason that we are able to see every bit of the world sitting from the spaces that we all exist today, but it's also about the experience which we want to live in a commonality, which brings in a certain shift of paradigm to what we are doing. And I think I'm super impressed that Wurfel is able to create that sort of benchmark, being an Indian company, to create that shift of paradigm, and is able to pride itself as being an Indian company and able to deliver the kind of quality benchmarks that the world can offer right here at your doorstep. So I'm very impressed with that genre.
And that is something that, excites an architect like you. I mean, the whole idea of a concept like that, and you sort of having seen the world and seen this world of architecture, you think that's like a promising note for people who are building their first homes or second homes?
Absolutely. I think that's the enterprise. That's the presentation and ability of an enterprise. So for us, we are potentially divine. We have every ability to sort of nudge that capability in us and arrive and then produce what we can do invincibly accurate only when we are able to practice and bring that position through hard work and effort to that level of detail. So I think Wurfel that way is a fantastic company as an example, and I've been to many of their presentations, understood all their information, met their personnels, and in that sort of conversation and understanding of looking at their products, we can definitely experience that potential which we must always explore. And to be India, to live India, and to explore and enjoy India has always been my priority ever.
This is the Wurfel Luxuriate Hour. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on my show, sir. Your final shout out to Bangalore, in terms of just beautiful homes, a beautiful life, a motto of life that you live by, a motto of life in design. What's your final shout out?
Reuse, reduce use, recycle use, and rejuvenate use.
Love that. Perfect motto on the show tonight. Wurfel Living Studio in Banaswadi. Check them out on wurfel.in. That's all that I have time for on the show tonight. I'm sure that's something that you are credited for whenever you meet somebody, right?
Absolutely.
More in just a bit on 94.3 Radio 1.